Her life was full of losses and tragic events, but her life energy and her spirit were above them. Her talents were numerous and incredible. She fought for justice and she was successful in everything what she did. This is a biography of one amazing woman, and I promise that you will no regret to watch it till the end. It is time for Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou. American poet, singer, memoirist, actress and civil rights activist. Early life. Maya Angelou was born Marguerite Annie Johnson on April 4, 1928, in St. Louis, Missouri. After her parents' marriage ended, she and her brother Bailey, who gave her the name Maya, were sent to rural Stamps, Arkansas, to live with their grandmother who owned a general store. At that time Angelou was 3 and her brother 4. 4 years later, the children's father came to Stamps without warning and returned them to their mother's care in St. Louis. Angelou was devastated when she was raped at the age of 8 by her mother's boyfriend while on a visit to St. Louis. After she testified against the man, several of her uncles beat him to death. Believing that she had caused the man's death by speaking his name, Angelou refused to speak for approximately 5 years. She attended public schools in Arkansas and later California. She gave birth to a son at age 17, 3 weeks after completing school. In 1950 she married Tosh Angelos, a Greek sailor, but the marriage lasted only a few years. Early career. In 1951, Angelou married Tosh Angelos, a Greek electrician, former sailor, and aspiring musician. She took modern dance classes during this time, and met dancers and choreographers Alvin Ailey and Ruth Beckford. Ailey and Angelou formed a dance team, calling themselves Al and Rita, and performed modern dance at fraternal black organizations throughout San Francisco but never became successful. Angelou, her new husband, and her son moved to New York City so she could study African dance with Trinidadian dancer Pearl Primus, but they returned to San Francisco a year later. After Angelou's marriage ended in 1954, she danced professionally in clubs around San Francisco, including the nightclub The Purple Onion, where she sang and danced to calypso music. Up to that point, she went by the name of Marguerite Johnson, or Rita, but at the strong suggestion of her managers and supporters at The Purple Onion, she changed her professional name to Maya Angelou, her nickname and former married surname. During 1954 and 1955, Angelou toured Europe with a production of the opera Porgy and Bess. She began her practice of learning the language of every country she visited, and in a few years she gained proficiency in several languages. In 1957, riding on the popularity of calypso, Angelou recorded her first album, Miss Calypso. She appeared in an off-Broadway revue that inspired the 1957 film Calypso Heat Wave, in which Angelou sang and performed her own compositions. Angelou joined the Harlem Writers Guild in the late 1950s and met James Baldwin and other important writers. In 1960, after meeting civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and hearing him speak, she and novelist John Oliver Killens organized the legendary Cabaret for Freedom to benefit the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and she was named SCLC's Northern Coordinator. According to scholar Lyman B. Hagen, her contributions to civil rights as a fundraiser and SCLC organizer were successful and eminently effective. Angelou also began her pro-Castro and anti-apartheid activism during this time. Life in Africa. In 1961, she met South African freedom fighter Vusumzl Make. They never officially married. She and her son Guy moved with Make to Cairo, where Angelou worked as an associate editor at the weekly English-language newspaper The Arab Observer. In 1962, her relationship with Make ended, and she and Guy moved to Accra, Ghana. Angelou remained in Accra until 1965. She became an administrator at the University of Ghana, and was active in the African American expatriate community. She was a feature editor for the African Review, a freelance writer for the Ghanaian Times, wrote and broadcast for Radio Ghana, and worked and performed for Ghana's National Theatre. She performed in a revival of the Blacks in Geneva and Berlin. In Accra, she became close friends with Malcolm X during his visit in the early 1960s. Angelou returned to the U.S. in 1965 to help him build a new civil rights organization, the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He was assassinated shortly afterward. Back to USA. Despite having almost no experience, in 1968 she wrote, produced, and narrated Black's Blues Black, a 10-part series of documentaries about the connection between blues music and Black Americans' African heritage, and what Angelou called the Africanisms still current in the U.S., for national educational television. Also in 1968, inspired at a dinner party she attended with her friend James Baldwin, cartoonist Jules Pfeiffer, and his wife Judy, and challenged by Random House editor Robert Loomis, she wrote her first autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, published in 1969. This brought her international recognition and acclaim. Released in 1972, Angelou's Georgia Georgia, produced by a Swedish film company and filmed in Sweden, was the first screenplay written by a Black woman. Later life and career. Over the next 10 years, Angelou worked as a composer, writing for singer Roberta Flack, and composing movie scores. She wrote articles, short stories, TV scripts, documentaries, autobiographies, and poetry. She produced plays and was named visiting professor at several colleges and universities. She was a reluctant actor, and was nominated for a Tony Award in 1973 for her role in Look Away. As a theater director, in 1988 she undertook a revival of Errol John's play Moon on a Rainbow Shawl at the Almeida Theatre in London. In 1977, Angelou appeared in a supporting role in the television miniseries Roots. She was given a multitude of awards during this period, including over 30 honorary degrees from colleges and universities from all over the world. In the late 1970s, Angelou met Oprah Winfrey when Winfrey was a TV anchor in Baltimore, Maryland. Angelou would later become Winfrey's close friend and mentor. She returned to the southern United States in 1981 because she felt she had to come to terms with her past there, and despite having no bachelor's degree, accepted a lifetime Reynolds Professorship of American Studies at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where she was one of a few full-time African American professors. Angelou achieved her goal of directing a feature film in 1996, Down in the Delta, which featured actors such as Alfre Woodard and Wesley Snipes. Also in 1996, she collaborated with R&B artists Ashford and Simpson on 7 of the 11 tracks of their album Been Found. The album was responsible for 3 of Angelou's only Billboard chart appearances. In 2000, she created a successful collection of products for Hallmark, including greeting cards and decorative household items. She responded to critics who charged her with being too commercial by stating that the enterprise was perfectly in keeping with her role as the people's poet. More than 30 years after Angelou began writing her life story, she completed her 6th autobiography, A Song Flung Up to Heaven, in 2002. Angelou campaigned for the Democratic Party in the 2008 presidential primaries, giving her public support to Hillary Clinton, but Barack Obama won. When Clinton's campaign ended, Angelou put her support behind Obama, who went on to win the presidential election and became the first African American president of the United States. After Obama's inauguration, she stated, "We are growing up beyond the idiocies of racism and sexism." In late 2010, Angelou donated her personal papers and career memorabilia to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem. They consisted of more than 340 boxes of documents that featured her handwritten notes on yellow legal pads for I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and many other telegrams, notes, correspondences with colleagues and friends. In 2011, Angelou served as a consultant for the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Washington, D.C., and in 2013, at the age of 85, Angelou published the 7th volume of autobiography in her series titled, Mom and Me and Mom, which focuses on her relationship with her mother. Personal life. She married Tosh Angelos in 1951 and Paul Dufour in 1974, and began her relationship with Vusumzl Make in 1961, but never formally married him. Angelou held many jobs, including some in the sex trade, working as a prostitute and madam for lesbians, as she described in her second autobiography, Gathered Together in My Name. Angelou had one son, Guy, whose birth she described in her first autobiography, one grandson, two great-grandchildren, and a large group of friends and extended family. Angelou's mother Vivian Baxter died in 1991 and her brother Bailey Johnson Jr. died in 2000 after a series of strokes. Both were important figures in her life and her books. In 1981, the mother of her grandson disappeared with him. Finding him took 4 years. Angelou died on the morning of May 28, 2014 at the age 86. Her son Guy Johnson stated that despite being in constant pain due to her dancing career and respiratory failure, she wrote 4 books during the last 10 years of her life. Interesting facts. While still in high school, she became the first ever African-American female streetcar conductor in San Francisco, California. In 1993, Angelou recited her poem On the Pulse of Morning at the first inauguration of Bill Clinton, making her the first poet to make an inaugural recitation since Robert Frost at the inauguration of John F. Kennedy in 1961. Her recitation resulted in more fame and recognition for her previous works, and broadened her appeal across racial, economic, and educational boundaries. The recording of the poem won a Grammy Award. In June 1995, she delivered what Richard Long called her second public poem, titled A Brave and Startling Truth, which commemorated the 50th anniversary of the United Nations. It is almost impossible to describe work and life of such an amazing woman like Maya was, and I am strongly suggesting you to find out more about Maya Angelou.